Caged Bird by Maya Angelou. A free bird leaps on the back of the wind and floats downstream till the current ends, and dips his wing in the orange sun rays and dares to claim the sky. But a bird that stalks down his narrow cage can seldom see through his bars of rage. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. The caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but longed for still, and his tune is heard on the distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom. The free bird thinks of another breeze, and the trade wind soft through the sighing trees, and the fat worms waiting on the dawn-bright lawn, and he names the sky his own. But the caged bird stands on the grave of dreams. His shadow shouts on a nightmare scream. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied, so he opens his throat to sing. The caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but longed for still, and his tune is heard on the distant hill, for the caged bird sings of freedom.
All Hallows Eve by Dorothea Tanning. Be perfect. Make it otherwise. Yesterday is torn in shreds. Lightning's thousand sulphur eyes rip apart the breathing beds. Hear bones crack and pulverize. Doom creeps in on rubber treads. Countless overwrought housewives, minds unraveling like threads, try lipstick shades to tranquilize fears of age and general dreads. Sit still, be perfect, swat the spies. Don't take faucets for fountain heads. Drink tasty antidotes. Otherwise, you and the werewolf, newlyweds.
Luke Havergal by Edwin Arlington Robinson. Go to the western gate, Luke Havergal, there where the vines cling crimson on the wall. And in the twilight, wait for what will come. The leaves will whisper there of her, and some, like flying words, will strike you as they fall. But go, and if you listen, she will call. Go to the western gate, Luke Havergal. Luke Havergal. No, there is not a dawn in eastern skies to rift the fiery night that's in your eyes. But there, where western glooms are gathering, the dark will end the dark, if anything. God slays himself with every leaf that flies, and hell is more than half of paradise. No, there is not a dawn in eastern skies, in eastern skies. Out of a grave I come to tell you this. Out of a grave I come to quench the kiss that flames upon your forehead with a glow that blinds you to the way that you must go. Yes, there is yet one way to where she is. Bitter, but one that faith may never miss. Out of a grave I come to tell you this, to tell you this. There's the western gate, Luke Havergal. There are the crimson leaves upon the wall. Go, for the winds are tearing them away, nor think to riddle the dead words they say, nor any more to feel them as they fall. But go, and if you trust her, she will call. There's the western gate, Luke Havergal. Luke Havergal.
To Helen by Edgar Allan Poe. Helen, thy beauty is to me like those Nicean barks of yore, that gently o'er a perfumed sea, the weary way-worn wanderer bore to his own native shore. On desperate seas long wont to roam, thy hyacinth hair, thy classic face, thy naiad airs that brought me home to the glory that was Greece and the grandeur that was Rome. Lo, in yon brilliant window niche, how statue-like I see thee stand, the agate lamp within thy hand. Ah, Psyche, from regions which are Holy Land.
Ways of Talking by Ha-Jin. We used to like talking about grief. Our journals and letters were packed with losses, complaints, and sorrows. Even if there was no grief, we wouldn't stop lamenting as though longing for the charm of a distressed face. Then we couldn't help expressing grief. So many things descended without warning. Labor wasted, loves lost, houses gone, marriages broken, friends estranged, ambitions worn away by immediate needs. Words lined up in our throats for a good whining. Grief seemed like an endless river, the only immortal flow of life. After losing a land and then giving up a tongue, we stopped talking of grief. Smiles began to brighten our faces. We laugh a lot at our own mess. Things become beautiful, even hailstones in the strawberry fields.
The Hospital Window by James L. Dickey. I have just come down from my father. Higher and higher he lies above me in a blue light, shed by a tinted window. I drop through 6 white floors and then step out onto pavement. Still feeling my father ascend, I start to cross the firm street, my shoulder blades shining with all the glass the huge building can raise. Now I must turn round and face it, and know his one pain from the others. Each window possesses the sun, as though it burned there on a wick. I wave like a man catching fire. All the deep-dyed window panes flash, and behind them, all the white rooms, they turn to the color of heaven. Ceremoniously, gravely, and weakly, dozens of pale hands are waving back from inside their flames. Yet one pure pain among these is the bright, erased blankness of nothing. I know that my father is there, in the shape of his death still living. The traffic increases around me, like a madness called down on my head. The horns blast at me like shotguns, and drivers lean out, driven crazy. But now, my propped up father lifts his arm out of stillness at last. The light from the window strikes me, and I turn as blue as a soul, as the moment when I was born. I am not afraid for my father. Look, he is grinning. He is not afraid for my life either, as the wild engines stand at my knees, shredding their gears and roaring, and I hold each car in its place for miles, inciting its horn to blow down the walls of the world, that the dying may float without fear in the bold blue gaze of my father. Slowly, I move to the sidewalk, with my pin-tingling hand half dead at the end of my bloodless arm. I carry it off in amazement. High, still higher, still waving, my recognized face fully mortal. Yet not. Not at all. In the pale, drained, otherworldly, stricken, created hue of stained glass. I have just come down from my father.
And if I did, what then? By George Gaskin. And if I did, what then? Are you aggrieved, therefore? The sea hath fish for every man, and what would you have more? Thus did my mistress once maze my mind with doubt, and popped a question for the nonce to beat my brains about. Whereto I thus replied, every fisherman can wish that all the seas at every tide were his alone to fish. And so did I, and so did I in vain, but since it may not be, let such fish thereas find the gain, and leave the loss for me. And with such luck and loss, I will content myself, till tides of turning time may toss such fishers on the shelf. And when they stick on sands that every man may see, then will I laugh and clap my hands as they do now at me.
Jenny Kissed Me by Leigh Hunt. Jenny kissed me when we met, jumping from the chair she sat in. Time, you thief, who love to get sweets into your list. Put that in. Say I'm weary, say I'm sad, say that health and wealth have missed me. Say I'm growing old, but add, Jenny kissed me.
This is The Hill by Joshua Megan. On the crowded hill bordering the mill, across the shallow stream nearer than they seem, they wait, and will be waiting. Rain, the small smilax, is the same to the fly as the big bush of lilacs exploding nearby. The rain may be abating. On the quiet hill beside the droning mill, across the dirty stream nearer than they seem, they wait, and will be waiting. The glass-eyed cicada drones in the linden draped like a tent above 3 polished stones. Aphids swarm with the scent of the yellow petals. A bird comes to prod a clump of wet fur. The ferns idiotically nod when she takes it away with her. Something somewhere settles. On the crowded hill bordering the mill is our best cemetery. Pretty, but not very. All are welcome here. Sun finds a bare-teak box on the tidy green plot. It finds lichen-crusted blocks fringed with forget-me-not. Angels preen everywhere. On the crowded hill bordering the mill is our best cemetery. Pretty, but not very. All are welcome here.
El Olvido by Judith Ortiz Cofer. It is a dangerous thing to forget the climate of your birthplace, to choke out the voices of dead relatives when in dreams they call you by your secret name. It is dangerous to spurn the clothes you were born to wear for the sake of fashion. Dangerous to use weapons and sharp instruments you are not familiar with. Dangerous to disdain the plaster paints before which your mother kneels, praying with embarrassing fervor that you survive in the place you have chosen to live, a bare, cold room with no pictures on the walls, a forgetful place where she fears you will die of loneliness and exposure. Jesus, Maria y Jose, she says, El Olvido is a dangerous thing.
The world is about to end, and my grandparents are in love, by Kara Jackson. Still, living like they orbit one another. My grandfather, the planet, and Grandma, his moon assigned by some gravitational pull. They have loved long enough for a working man to retire. Grandma says she's not tired. She wears her husband like a coat that survives every season, talks about him the way my parents talk about vinyl, the subject salvaged by the tent of their tongues. Grandma returns to her love like a hymn, marks it with a color. When the world ends, will it suck the earth of all its love? Will I go, taking somebody's hand, my skin becoming their skin? The digital age is taking away our winters, and I'm afraid the sun is my soulmate. That waste waits for a wet kiss, carbon calls me pretty, and I think death is a good first date. I hope when the world ends, it leaves them be. Spares Grandpa and his game, Grandma spinning corn into wheat, the two of them reeling into Western theme songs, the TV louder than whatever's coming.
This is Not Waving But Drowning by Stevie Smith. Nobody heard him, the dead man, but still he lay, moaning. I was much farther out than you thought, and not waving, but drowning. Poor chap, he always loved larking, and now he is dead. It must have been too cold for him, his heart gave way, they said. Oh no, no, no. It was too cold always. Still the dead one lay moaning. I was much too far out all my life, and not waving, but drowning.
The Bear by Susan Mitchell. Tonight, the bear comes to the orchard and, balancing on her hind legs, dances under the apple trees, hanging on to their boughs, dragging their branches down to earth. Look again. It is not the bear, but some after image of her, like the car I once saw in the driveway after the last guest had gone. Snow pulls the apple boughs to the ground. Whatever moves in the orchard, heavy, lumbering, is clear as wind. The bear is long gone. Drunk on apples, she banged over the trash cans that fall night, then skidded downstream. By now she must be logged in for the winter, unless she is choosy. I imagine her as very choosy, sniffing at the huge logs, pawing them, trying each one on for size, but always coming out again. Until tonight. Tonight, sap freezes under her skin. Her breath leaves white apples in the air. As she walks, she dozes, listening to the sound of axes chopping wood. Somewhere she can never catch up to, trees are falling, chips pile up like snow. When she does find it, finally, the log draws her in as easily as a forest, and for a while she continues to see, just ahead of her, the moon trapped like a salmon in the ice.
Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening by Robert Frost. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark, and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep.
Abandoned Farmhouse by Ted Kozer. He was a big man, says the size of his shoes, on a pile of broken dishes by the house. And a tall man, says the length of the bed in an upstairs room. And a good, God-fearing man, says the Bible with the broken back on the floor in front of the window, dusty with sun. But not a man of farming, says the fields, cluttered with boulders and the leaky barn. A woman lived with him, says the bedroom wall, papered with lilacs, and the kitchen shelves covered with oilcloth. And they had a kid, says the sandbox made from a tractor tire. Money was scarce, says the jars of plum preserves and canned tomatoes sealed in the cellar hole. And the winter's cold, say the rags in the window frame. And it was lonely, says the narrow country road. Something went wrong, says the old house in a field of weeds. The boulders in the field say he was not a farmer. The still sealed jars say she left in a nervous haze. Then the child, its toys are strewn across the yard like branches after a storm. A rubber cow, a rusty tractor with a broken plow, a doll with overalls. Something went wrong, they say.
Wind, Water, Stone by Octavio Paz. Water hollows stone. Wind scatters water. Stone stops the wind. Water, wind, stone. Wind carves stone. Stone a cup of water. Water escapes and is the wind. Stone, wind, water. Wind sings in its whirling. Water murmurs going by. Stones in their place keep still. Wind, water, stone. Each is another and no other, crossing and vanishing through their empty names. Water, stone, wind.
Broken Promises by David Kirby. I have met them in dark alleys, limping and one-armed. I have seen them playing cards under a single light bulb and tried to join in, but they refused me rudely, knowing I would only let them win. I have seen them in the foyers of theaters, coming back late from the interval, long after the others have taken their seats. And in deserted shopping malls, late at night, peering at things they can never buy. And I have found them wandering in a wood where I too have wandered. This morning I caught one, small and stupid, too slow to get away. It was only a promise I made to myself once, and then forgot. But it screamed and kicked at me and ran to join the others, who looked at me with reproach in their long, sad faces. When I drew near them, they scurried away, even though they will sleep in my yard tonight. I hate them for their ingratitude. I, who have kept countless promises as dead now as Shakespeare's children. You bastards, I scream. You have to love me. I gave you life.
No, I wasn't meant to love and be loved, by Mirza Asadullah Khan Ghalib. No, I wasn't meant to love and be loved. If I'd lived longer, I would have waited longer. Knowing you are faithless keeps me alive and hungry. Knowing you are faithful would kill me with joy. Delicate are you, and your vows are delicate too. So easily do they break. You are a laconic marksman. You leave me not dead, but perpetually dying. I want my friends to heal me, succor me. Instead, I get analysis. Conflagrations that would make stones drip blood are campfires compared to my anguish. Two-headed, inescapable anguish. Love's anguish or the anguish of time. Another dark, severing, incommunicable night. Death would be fine if I only died once. I would have liked a solitary death. Not this lavish funeral, this grave anyone can visit. You are mystical, Ghalib, and also you speak beautifully. Are you a saint, or just drunk as usual?
Dirge Without Music by Edna St. Vincent Millay. I am not resigned to the shutting away of loving hearts in the hard ground. So it is, and so it will be, for so it has been, time out of mind. Into the darkness they go, the wise and the lovely, crowned with lilies and with laurel they go, but I am not resigned. Lovers and thinkers, into the earth with you. Be one with the dull, the indiscriminate dust, a fragment of what you felt, of what you knew. A formula, a phrase remains, but the best is lost. The answers quick and keen, the honest look, the laughter, the love, they're gone. They are gone to feed the roses. Elegant and curled is the blossom. Fragrant is the blossom. I know, but I do not approve. More precious was the light in your eyes than all the roses in the world. Down, down, down into the darkness of the grave. Gently they go, the beautiful, the tender, the kind. Quietly they go, the intelligent, the witty, the brave. I know, but I do not approve, and I am not resigned.
In the Desert by Stephen Crane. In the desert, I saw a creature, naked, bestial, who squatting upon the ground held his heart in his hand and ate of it. I said, "Is it good, friend?" "It is bitter, bitter," he answered. "But I like it because it is bitter, and because it is my heart."
Grief by Elizabeth Barrett Browning. I tell you, hopeless grief is passionless, that only men incredulous of despair, half taught in anguish through the midnight air, be up to God's throne in loud access of shrieking and reproach, full desertness in souls as countries. Lieth silent there, under the blanching vertical eye glare of the absolute heavens. Deep-hearted man, express grief for thy dead through silence like to death. Most like a monumental statue set, till itself crumble to the dust beneath. Touch it, the marble eyelids are not wet. If it could weep, it could arise and go.
Sun Shower by Natalie Shapiro. Some people say the devil is beating his wife. Some people say the devil is pawing his wife. Some people say the devil is doubling down on an overall attitude of entitlement toward the body of his wife. Some people say the devil won't need to be sorry, as the devil believes that nothing comes after this life. Some people say that in spite of the devil's public, long-standing, and meticulously logged disdain for the health and wholeness of his wife, the devil spends all day, every day, insisting grandly and gleefully on his general pro-woman ethos. That the devil truly considers himself to be an unswayed crusader, effortlessly magnetic, scrupulous, gracious, and In spite of the devil's several advanced degrees, a luminous autodidact. Some people say, calm down. This is commonplace. Some people say, calm down. This is very rare. Some people say the sun is washing her face. Some people say, in hell, they're having a fair.
To Solitude by Alice Carey. I am weary of the working, weary of the long day's heat. To thy comfortable bosom wilt thou take me, spirit sweet? Weary of the long blind struggle for a pathway bright and high, weary of the dimly dying hopes that never quite all die. Weary searching a bad cipher for a good that must be meant, discontent with being weary, weary with my discontent. I am weary of the trusting where my trusts but torments prove. Wilt thou keep faith with me? Wilt thou be my true and tender love? I'm weary drifting, driving like a helmless bark at sea. Kind and comfortable spirit, wilt thou give thyself to me? Give thy birds to sing me sonnets, give thy winds my cheeks to kiss, and thy mossy rocks to stand for the memorials of our bliss. I in reverence will hold thee, never vexed with jealous ills, though thy wild and wimpling waters wind about 1,000 hills.
We Are Not Responsible by Harriet Mullen. We are not responsible for your lost or stolen relatives. We cannot guarantee your safety if you disobey our instructions. We do not endorse the causes or claims of people begging for handouts. We reserve the right to refuse service to anyone. Your ticket does not guarantee that we will honor your reservation. In order to facilitate our procedures, please limit your carry-ons. Before taking off, please extinguish all smoldering resentments. In the event of a loss, you'd better look out for yourself. If you cannot understand English, you will be moved out of the way. Your insurance was canceled because we can no longer handle your frightful claims. Our handlers lost your luggage and we are unable to find the key to your legal case. You were detained for interrogation because you fit the profile. You are not presumed to be innocent if the police have reason to suspect you are carrying a concealed wallet. It is not our fault you were born wearing gang colors. It is not our obligation to inform you of your rights. Step aside, please, while our officer inspects your bad attitude. You have no rights we are bound to respect. Please remain calm, or we cannot be held responsible for what happens to you. Thank you.
This is And If I Did, What Then? By George Gascoigne. And if I did, what then? Are you aggrieved therefore? The sea hath fish for every man, and what would you have more? Thus did my mistress once, amaze my mind with doubt, and popped a question for the nonce to beat my brains about. Whereto I thus replied, each fisherman can wish that all the seas at every tide were his alone to fish. And so did I, in vain. But since it may not be, let such fish theirs find the game, and leave the loss for me. And with such luck and loss I will content myself, till the tides of turning time may toss such fishers on the shelf. And when they stick on sands, that every man may see, then I will laugh and clap my hands, as they do now at me.
Ways of Talking by Ha Jin. We used to like talking about grief. Our journals and letters were packed with losses, complaints, and sorrows. Even if there was no grief, we wouldn't stop lamenting, as though longing for the charm of a distressed face. Then we couldn't help expressing grief. So many things descended without warning. Labors wasted, loves lost, marriages broken, houses gone, friends estranged. ambitions worn away by immediate needs. Grief seemed like an endless river, the only immortal flow of life. After losing a land and then giving up a tongue, we stopped talking of grief. Smiles began to brighten our faces. We laugh a lot at our own mess. Things are beautiful, even hailstones and strawberry fields.
Cartoon Physics, Part 1, by Nick Flynn. Children under, say, 10 shouldn't know that the universe is ever expanding, inexorably pushing into the vacuum, galaxies swallowed by galaxies, whole solar systems collapsing, all of it acted out in silence. At 10, we are still learning the rules of cartoon animation, that if a man draws a door on a rock, only he can pass through it. Anyone else who tries will crash into the rock. 10-year-olds should stick with burning houses, car wrecks, ships going down, earthbound, tangible disasters, arenas where they can be heroes. You can run back into a burning house. Sinking ships have lifeboats. The trucks will come with their ladders. If you jump, you will be saved. A child places her hand on the roof of a school bus and drives across a city of sand. She knows the exact spot it will skid, at which point the bridge will give, who will swim to safety, and who will be pulled under by sharks. She will learn that if a man runs off the edge of a cliff, he will not fall until he notices his mistake.
This is The Poet's Light with Lamps by Emily Dickinson. The poet's light with lamps themselves go out. The wicks they stimulate, if vital light, in here as do the suns. Each age a lens, disseminating their circumference.
The Conqueror Worm by Edgar Allan Poe. Lo, 'tis a gala night within the lonesome latter years, an angel throng, bewinged, bedight in veils and drowned in tears, sit in a theatre to see a play of hopes and fears while the orchestra breathes fitfully the music of the spheres. Mimes, in the form of God on high, mutter and mumble low and hither and thither fly. Mere puppets they, who come and go at bidding of vast formless things that shift the scenery to and fro, flapping from out their condor wings in visible woe. That motley drama, oh, be sure it shall not be forgot, with its phantom chased forevermore by a crowd that sees it not, through a circle that ever returneth into the self-same spot, and much of madness, and more of sin and horror, the soul of the plot. But see, amid the mimic rout, a crawling shape intrude, a blood-red thing that writhes from out the scenic solitude. It writhes with mortal pangs. The mimes become its food, and seraphs sob at vermin fangs in human gore imbued. Out are the lights, out all, and over each quivering form, the curtain, a funeral pall, comes down with the rush of a storm. And the angels, all pallid and wan, uprising, unveiling, affirm that the play is the tragedy man, and its hero, the conqueror worm.
In School Days by John Greenleaf Whittier. Still sits the schoolhouse by the road, a ragged beggar sleeping. Around it still the sumacs grow, and blackberry vines are creeping. Within the master's desk is seen, deep scarred by raps official, the warping floor, the battered seats, the jackknife's carved initial, The charcoal frescoes on its wall, the door's worn sill betraying the feet that creeping slow to school went storming out to playing. Long years ago, a winter sun shone over it at setting, lit up its western window panes and low eaves icy fretting. It touched the tangled golden curls and brown eyes full of grieving, of one who still her steps delayed when all the school were leaving. For near her stood the little boy her childish favor singled, his cap pulled low upon a face where pride and shame were mingled. Pushing with restless feet the snow, to right and left he lingered, as restlessly her tiny hands the blue-checked apron fingered. He saw her lift her eyes, he felt the soft hands light caressing, and heard the tremble of her voice, as if a fault confessing. I'm sorry that I spelt the word, I hate to go above you, because, the brown eyes lower fell, because you see, I love you. Still memory to a gray-haired man, that sweet child face is showing. Dear girl, the grasses on her grave have 40 years been growing. He lives to learn in life's hard school how few who pass above him lament their triumph and his loss, like her, because they love him.
The Ghost by Charles Baudelaire. Softly, as brown-eyed angels rove, I will return to thy alcove, and glide upon the night to thee, treading the shadows silently. And I will give to thee my own, kisses as icy as the moon, and the caresses of a snake, cold, gliding through the thorny brake. And when the livid morn, when returns the livid morn, thou shalt find my place forlorn. And chilly as the falling night, others would rule by tenderness through thy life and youthfulness, but I would conquer thee by fright.
In the Desert by Stephen Crane. In the desert I saw a creature, naked, beast-style, who, squatting upon the ground, held his heart in his hands and ate of it. I asked, "Is it good, friend?" "It is bitter, bitter," he answered. "But I like it, because it is bitter, and because it is my heart."